Yes, it's time again. The final time, you could say. This video here will be the kind of finale to my DnD Party series. We are now level 17, which by DnD standards is very late game. Endgame, you could say. We have just completed the penultimate arc of the campaign, and all of the characters have changed since last time around. And yes, there has been death, so there will be 1 or 2 bonus models. There will be chapters at the bottom of the video if you want to skip to a certain model concept, but I will not spoil what has changed or who has died. Now, as old-timers of my channel will know, there are a few special rules to making these D&D party videos. For starters, we are a party of 8 players, 9 if you include the Dungeon Master. Yeah, I know it's a lot. Secondly, I do not get to decide what these characters ultimately look like. I may be creating the models, but it is up to each individual player what their character is about, and it is up to the Dungeon Master what items they receive throughout the campaign. That is to say, for someone as particular as me, this is kind of like doing Hero Forge on hard mode. Also, since these characters have gone through many iterations by now, I will start each segment with a very rapid recap of what they look like before this video. Anyway, as always, the links to these models will be in the description below the video, along with the link to my Discord community server and my Patreon. With all of that said, enough filler intro garbage, enjoy the video. As is tradition with these D&D videos, we are starting off with Vice, the Tiefling Fighter. Now, she started off as the bodyguard of another character in the party, but has since then died and also been resurrected as a vampire. Yeah, I know it's a bit crazy, don't ask me. I didn't even know Tieflings could be vampires, but apparently, sure. Anyway, she is also getting a big armor makeover because we've just slain a major villain, this draconic-themed lord that I made another video for like half a year ago. So after we killed him, Vice obviously looted his plated armor, and I'm going to make it look a bit chipped in some places, but overall she's going to be getting a very similar suit of plate to what he had. So all in all, the goal with Vice is to stray away from the like stoic, polished guardswoman look and make her look like a much grittier and more aggressive warrior in worn down evil armor. Wish me luck. One thing you'll probably notice throughout this video is that I try to create the magical items first. That's why you see like a sword and a necklace floating next to the model before I've even started on Vice herself. The reason I put an overfocus on like the magic items is really just because they are D&D models, right? And I feel like it adds to the RPG charm, but it is by no means mandatory. As I alluded to before, Vice is really not a guardswoman anymore, right? She's now a much darker and more aggressive character, and I want that to reflect in the new pose I'm giving her. Hence why we're adding all of this motion instead of sticking to her old idle pose. It also just looks cooler, let's be honest. As for the aforementioned evil plate armor, Vice's player also requested that I kind of leave some parts of the armor out, like showing her limbs a bit, etc. So I will be using the excuse that parts of the armor was broken in the battle to make it look a little more like asymmetrical. It helps to show off, you know, the beefy tiefling bicep, etc. Vice, at this stage of the campaign, is somewhat problematic, I would say. Like, as I mentioned before, she's technically a vampire spawn now, right? That means that every now and then she gets a bit mind-controlled by an old villain we fought at the beginning of the game. So sometimes she will randomly just kind of turn evil or do something extremely unhinged against her own will, and often without the rest of us having any clue what's going on as well. So honestly, I don't know, like, we might just have to kill her soon, I think, but I don't know. Anyway, chainmail is also cool. Finally, with the model basically complete, we are at the stage where we just need to make separate versions of her for top-down and for her portrait. The model is already mostly designed for this to begin with, so the changes are generally pretty small, but it means things like minor pose adjustments from top-down, as well as adding extra detail to her hair and her facial expression, etc. for the portrait. But with that done, so is Vice. So, let's move on to the next model. Then we have Lawrence, a human Spellblade. Now, this is my own character and also the party's go-to rich snobby asshole. Exactly what I've wanted to do with him has changed over the course of the campaign, so I cannot claim to be completely consistent video to video with this character concept, right? But what he's eventually turned out and developed to be is kind of like an antagonistic frontline melee wizard. So he's supposed to look arrogant, he's supposed to look aggressive and also lordly at the same time. Most importantly, he's now kind of completed his own revenge arc against one of the campaign's big villains, so he's going to drop the whole worn down look from the previous iteration. Beyond just looking a lot more polished, a big addition is also going to be this legendary flaming longsword that he looted from said villain. I'm going to pull out all of the stops to make this weapon look cool as a centerpiece for the model. It is gilded, it is dragon themed, it's on fire. Yeah, let's go. The bright side with this character is that it's, mine, so unlike with the others, I get to choose the color scheme, etc. myself, and you know what that means, it's a lot of red and a lot of blue. This time though, I am going to make the red in specific a lot more prominent. So there's currently a lot of drama in the party because this character is attempting to claim control over the minions of the previous bad guys, so yeah, I know I'm staging a bit of a coup, don't worry, it'll be fine. So anyway, I want to visually follow that thread by making him look a little bit more evil in general. Now, as is tradition, any character that I play needs to have an extremely elaborate mix of horn hair combined with added on kit-bashed hairstyles. I promise, by the way, this is absolutely not born out of any kind of deep-seated insecurity about my own slowly receding hairline IRL. I mean it. I am fine. Anyway, all of that aside, the model mostly just lacks a little bit of detail now. I am going to use some very economical and cheap kit-bashing items, like kit bashing coupons, you could say, to add things like scrolls and straps here and there, and after that we are pretty much done with Lawrence and ready to move on, I think. And here we have the party's elf, Briar. Now, this character is a bit of a stereotype, right? Like, it's the lawful good elven healer druid character, yada yada yada. Proper tree hugger archetype, you know? Now, I am kind of an infamous elf hater. I think they're kind of boring. So whenever I make this character, I tend to kind of trash talk it. And I always tend to get like some hate in the comments for trash talking, like members of the DnD party, etc. Which is fine, that's okay, I don't mind. But I'm gonna throw in a curveball here and say Briar is actually kind of cool now, at least aesthetically. So, two reasons, okay? First of all, Briar is technically an Eladrin, not an elf, which means she's kind of like an overgrown plant woman. Secondly, our dungeon master also messed her up a bit by giving her like this messed up molten arm scarred from an overuse of fire magic, and with these things combined, I think that we can make her look very cool this time actually. Rare use of double modeling going on here. One of the only things that you cannot import with kit bashing is actual body parts. So I am using the arm and only the arm of the golem model, and I'm clipping it into Briar's arm so that it looks kind of chipped and rocky. Otherwise it would just be like flat decals to create this molten look, and that was kind of dull, you know. I also need to conserve my kit bashing slots with this model because like the plants and everything are going to take up a lot of percentage down the line. Honestly, the most fun part of making Briar is always just applying all of these little vines to her character. The downside is that it takes a lot of kit bashing slots, right, which could be used for other things, but she's meant to be covered in floral growth, so I'm just gonna commit to the bit. With that said though, there's apparently a thing with Eladrins that make their flowers and vines and stuff changed based on moods and seasons, so they can get all like blue and wintry or orange and autumny, etc. Like I don't know the lore, don't ask me, it's elves, okay, it's not my area of expertise. But me personally, I've always just kind of defaulted to just putting her in summer state, but if anyone wants to go into the description and take the link of this model and try to do some like recolors or whatever for different states, I would be interested in seeing it for sure. In terms of character, I feel like Briar is now pretty well represented by the model concept. Like, obviously she's a very stereotypically friendly elven healer, yada yada, but she also has streaks of pure rage every now and then, which I think matches very well with the one arm being a rocky molten mess. This is Merrick the Cleric. He is an Aasimar, which basically means he's half angel, but he is clad in full plate capped off with a blank expressionless metal face mask, so you can't really tell he is a half angel just by looking at him. Now, when this character replaced Grak, we all kind of started memeing about how he would immediately become the main character, but before he could become the lawful good angel man that you expect him to be, he kind of ended up accidentally committing a bunch of war crimes by sunbursting a gang of civilians. He also discriminates against the Tieflings in the party, so like honestly he's a bit dubious all around. Anyway, since last time he's got a new big upgraded shield, so we're looking to do a general model overhaul on him with a lot of focus on specifically the big fancy shield at the front. Now, I'll be real, Merrick is absolutely the hardest character to create out of anyone in this party. He is big, he is armored, he has elaborate items, and he has very specific restrictions on what kinds of color schemes he can have. He needs to somehow look divine and angelic, but simultaneously grounded and human. He can't have random heraldic patterns like any other plated knight, but he also can't just be white cloth on white plate, because then his model would look like a blurred blob of porridge, I guess. It's hard to put into words just like how tricky he actually is to design, but you'll probably end up seeing just how many different iterations of items and color schemes I go through here before I land on anything that I'm even remotely happy with, right? And here is the shield I was talking about. There was definitely some miscommunication here, as I originally believed it would be sort of evil draconian themed, given that that's where the loot came from, but then I learned that it was actually meant to be more holy themed. So I had to shift focus to something a lot less evil looking, I suppose. And there we go. It took a lot of back and forth before I finally settled on an upgraded version of this character. In the end, despite the issues that I have with his overall color scheme and aesthetics, I ended up kind of sticking to what he was wearing in the previous generation. Obviously, I've polished it in a way that I think looks much cleaner and better than before, but importantly, you can see that it's still the same character at least. And with that, we are done with Merrick the Cleric, so moving on. So this is Magnar, and also the party's token dwarf, because every D&D party needs one, right? He is a barbarian, and also sort of like the spiritual successor to Grak, or the party's previous like Goliath barbarian. Now generally this character is fairly like silent and background, when he's not like raging, that is. But he will have these like moments where he like randomly steps up with the most unhinged takes ever, like testing a magical barrier by throwing a random nobleman into it and immediately incinerating him. As for the actual model though, Magnar has picked up a lot of magical items since his first iterations. He was pretty new, so he started with nothing, but now he's got a lot. He has a flaming fire giant belt, he has magical defense bracers, he has a horn, and he also has like a ram themed ring. So all in all, a lot of updates needed for this character. The main thing that I really wanted to change with this one is to actually like express his rage in the pose itself. You know, Barbarian's rage is like their most iconic ability, etc. Because of that, I am moving away from the more idle looking pose of the previous generation, so instead I wanted to kind of inspire his look off of the rage stance from Baldur's Gate 3, hence the like pushed back shoulders and the red glowing anger eyes, etc. So, in Hero Forge terms, Magnar is kind of a bit tricky because he has a lot of things that take up many kit bashing slots, right? If you want a cool looking beard, you kinda have to stack several hairstyles. The Rage Eyes take up slots, the Shield Bracers take up slots, the Fire Belt and the Chains take up spots. Even the little ring takes up a few. Obviously the new like kit bashing percentage system is great, but it's still more restrictive than you'd like, you know? In the end, I also had to withdraw some changes that I had made to Magnar, like I was forced to go back and keep the green kilt from before, and I also had to take away his hair, because apparently Minoxidil Magnar wasn't feasible, but you know, all in all, I am still happy with the changes made to him. Angry Dwarf is now even angrier, and that is okay. Valis is the second tiefling of the campaign, and you know, despite Vice being a literal vampire dressed in the black plate of an evil nobleman, Valis is actually, believe it or not, still the edgier one out of the two. She is a shadow magic sorcerer, and honestly, if you ask me, kind of evil, to be honest. Listen, this is my video, and as the player of Lawrence, I am obligated to say she is evil because she literally used a mind control spell to force my character to agree to an unbreakable blood pact with a completely evil villain NPC. So yeah, like at one point or another, she has to die. Anyway, yeah, let's also make the model, I suppose. As far as aesthetics go, she is probably the character who has changed the least since the last patch. Like, the player took a break for a little while, which meant that she missed out on some of the progression the other characters underwent, but she has, however, got a new cloak, which I intend to focus a lot of the model around. Since she's all about, like, shadow magic, I want to make the cloak appear like this kind of black shadow that swirls around her in the same way that her magic otherwise would. The cloak is meant to be, in what it does, kind of thematic to the character as well, so this all checks out. Overall, even if the model is quite similar to before, I am pretty happy with how this one turned out, to be honest. I think that the little updates to her overall outfit and pose go a long way in making the character stand out more. And also the cloak is kind of a nice addition from the previous iteration. Also, something that you may have noticed by now is that almost all of the models in this batch are taller than in previous iterations, because I'm now using like body customizer to get more realistic proportions, right? And I think when you see the before and after, I think that you might agree that out of all of them, Valis was probably one of the characters that suffered the most from being like compressed in the old Hero Forge model way, more than the others, I think, anyway. This is Kargan, the party's saggy old dwarf necromancer. He's very new to the party because, like, okay, so, alright, so for those who are unaware, this character is played by the infamous Tommy. Tommy, who is best known on this channel for being the guy whose D&D characters constantly die and he has to reroll over and over, which means I have to keep making new characters for this guy, right? Okay, I'm not gonna swear. Okay, calm down, YouTube. Anyway, if I'm not wrong, Kargan now is his 8th character over the course of 2 campaigns. That is a lot, by the way. But as far as this model goes, it's actually a pretty cool one to make. It is a very edgy, like death-themed dwarf whose armor is covered in cloth rags and chains. So we have a lot of cool detail to work with here. As a character, Kargun is actually pretty cool. Initially he comes across as, you know, like the most typical evil necromancer there is, with Tommy doing a voice for him so harsh and gurgly that it sometimes actually tricks Discord into noise suppressing him, but like, then he and Briar had this weird moment where Kargun admitted that he actually just wants friends, so they had one of those like, you know, one of those TV show moments where the bad guy admits he was just lonely the whole time. Listen, it was great. The Druid and the Necromancer made friends. It was awesome. Tommy specifically requested a lot of details like chains and stuff on this model. Like, his look is obviously very much inspired by that kind of old school metal necromancer with spikes and skulls and yada yada. The only downside with this is that he's very, very dark and gritty and grey all around, which is also why I try to put so much emphasis on, you know, the few bits of color he does have, like the purple book, as well as a new evil magical axe he's picked up. Don't listen to the Dark Souls forgers on the Reddit, okay? Color is cool, I promise. All in all, I am very happy with Kargun's model. Obviously, it wasn't that long ago that I made his own little video when you know, X died, but even then I feel like I've managed to upgrade the model quite a bit from then. Particularly, I think that the pose now allows for the character's armor to actually show from a top-down perspective. And most importantly, Kargun is here to begin with. Like, wow, would you believe it? Tommy's character actually survived to the next video. I was just kidding, by the way. Tommy's character died again.
I lied.
In the final boss fight, the evil lord did a beam of fire that hit several people, ending with Kargun. He got disintegrated immediately, so yeah, like, okay, so like all of you people who took bets on Tommy not being the reroll of this video, I'm sorry, you lost again. So what we do is we add Kargun to the pile of dead Tommy character and we welcome his 9th D&D character. This is Urzul, a Hobgoblin Oath of Conquest Paladin. Oath of Conquest is awesome, by the way, really cool subclass. Anyway, it's all around a pretty dark and like antagonistic character concept, and I believe his backstory is like tied into being a traitor of the villain faction that we're campaigning against, so it checks out. But as for the model, this will probably be the most like straightforward one, since he's, you know, an entirely new character. He doesn't really have any meaningful magical items that stand out, and he also hasn't been around long enough to develop or change in any meaningful way yet, so, you know, like basically he won't be a colorful mess like all of the other characters, at least not yet. Now, at this point, you may be asking just how it is possible that Tommy manages to get himself killed all the time, right? And look, listen, to be completely honest, in the past, he has definitely had, phases of just being kind of an alcoholic and wanting to change around, but in recent times, it really kinda hasn't been his fault. So the kobold Ix died because he taunted a beholder without Tommy knowing how petty beholders are, and Kargan died purely from bad luck at being low health in the line of fire of an AoE beam that happened to include a disintegrate feature in it. It's not like he really wanted to reroll or that our DM even wanted to kill him, but it is what it is. We like to play kind of hardcore, so there aren't really second chances in these kinds of instances. Especially not when you're disintegrated, because then your character really becomes, ash, so it's unresurrectable, etc. As for the lore and story of this character, it is really new, so I honestly don't know too much about it, but he comes directly from the main villain faction that we were fighting early in the campaign, which included a lot of hobgoblins and goblins and dark dwarves, etc, yada yada yada. The scratched over symbol on his armor is supposed to reflect that. I know it's a fish, but it's meant to be like a comet or something, I don't know. Anyway, the scar over it, it obviously means that he's, denounced all the evil, hopefully, I don't know. Listen, we will see. I don't know that much about the character yet. All in all, Urzul here is probably my least favorite model of the batch because I feel like it lacks the pizzazz that like a lot of the other much more colorful characters have, but like obviously that is to be expected, I guess, when it's an entirely new addition to the party. It's kind of a shame that he didn't make a kobold again, Anyway, paladins are pretty tanky, they're pretty OP in general, so this time, at least on paper, Tommy should have a pretty good chance to survive, okay, let's hope. Then again, this is the guy who managed to die to a random slime mob on his barbarian in the last campaign, so like, yeah, I don't know, like, you tell me. Here we have Gnome.
Scusi con me? Gorlami.
This character, I think, kind of started off as comic relief, but ironically, he's probably the closest thing you get now to like a main leading moral compass of the party. At the time of this video's making, he is currently in active conflict with Lawrence because he thinks Lawrence is trying to become a tyrant, so maybe Gnome has to die soon, just saying, I don't know. Listen, worst case, we just disintegrate him and then he has to make a new, funnier looking character like Ham Hunch again. Anyway, yeah, let's make a model. Now, Gnome is obviously a character who benefits a lot from the new body customizer update. He is very small, right? But unlike before, I don't need to go crazy this time with using kit bashing to shrink his limbs left, right and center to make it work, right? Another benefit of him being tiny is that I will also get to have a lot more freedom with his pose, so he's likely going to look just a little bit more like action hero than the others, I think. Ironically, despite being like the most uncompromisingly good character in the party, Gnome looks very like dark and edgy, right? Like he is part rogue and he's also part illusion wizard, and one of his core items is like this whole suit of skull themed leather armor, so like he looks a lot more evil than he actually is. But To be completely honest with you, like almost none of Gnome's items or details actually show from up above because it's all covered up by like his massive round hat from a top-down perspective. It is horrible, I'm not gonna lie. To be honest, throughout the entire campaign, I've always hoped that something crazy would happen with the model of this character, but like, unlike with Ham Hunch, Gnome has not, you know, stress-eaten all throughout the campaign, so he's largely remained similar all the way through. Meaning the only real updates I've got to do to this character have been like his magical items, like the cool new Harper sword. Therefore, most of what I've aimed for with his like new addition here is refining what he already had and changing his pose to give him a lot better visibility from top down. Admittedly though, these are changes and upgrades that will be more apparent in top-down Roll20 than they will be here on Hero Forge. And that's Gorlami done. Maybe there'll be another video soon where I have to make a new model in place of him after he gets disintegrated. We'll see. Depends on if he tries to get in the way of my glorious plans. But yeah, anyway. As far as the model goes, I'm pretty happy with him. He looks about as cluttered and ragtag as you'd expect of an old gnomish wizard, so it will do. So, now that almost all of the models are done, I want to give some context to all of this, both to the creation process as well as the campaign and its story. First of all, as I said at the start, this is the final proper D&D video that I will make, but in the past I have done like 2 party upgrades that weren't really full overhauls. In a way you could say I've only actually really done like 3 generations of this party, and then 2 of those videos in between just slightly touched on the models that already existed. And in the same way, some small things might change with this party going forward. There might be a generation 3.5, so to say, like some character might get an item that requires a little switch up or whatever. But I won't do any other complete from the ground up overhauls like this one, unless someone, you know, dies again. I'm looking at you, Tommy. Anyway, as for the campaign itself, let me give you the real rapid rundown. So, we started out as a ragtag band of adventurers helping to fight off hobgoblins led by some mysterious evil entity. But instead of really dealing with that, we found out that we were working for a vampire, so we stabbed him in the back and both Rilloth and Dax died. That's Tommy death number 1 right there. But with the first act done, kit bashing came out and the party got a big visual upgrade. We then start chasing after whoever was behind the goblin attacks, and basically we just end up fighting a bunch of dwarves and giants in the mountains. Grak suffers a tragic dishonorable death by magic, Vice also dies, but she comes back as a vampire, and somehow Tommy's new dwarf also died, I don't know, you tell me. So at this stage we get like 3 new characters. We get Tommy's new kobold Ix, we get Merrick the cleric, and also Magnar comes flying in on an eagle, I guess. Finally, we fight a massive dragon. Tommy almost dies again, but lo and behold, he actually survived this time, and that is the end of Act 2. Meanwhile, back in the city, we have to go back and deal with this like draconic cult. We make a lot of shady deals with people against our will, Valis. We finally hit like a brick wall here. We get absolutely destroyed by the draconic cult boys. So we go on this like long journey of running and hiding and slowly trying to pick off some enemies one by one. Also Tommy gets disintegrated again. Enter Corrigan. But after some more progression, Finally, we start winning some fights, we start killing off the Dragonborn lieutenants one at a time, and then in true RPG fashion, we go into some like massive evil dungeon complex. We find the big bad, it's a huge fight where we actually get on the verge of getting TPK, just like in the Warhammer story. Tommy's character, Kargan, gets disintegrated once again, but in the end, we do succeed and get over the level 16 hurdle that we died at in the last campaign. So, victory. From there, we loot the bodies, we loot the horde, and I give the party another big old makeover using the new items, as well as some cool new booth features released by Hero Forge. And that is the end of Act 3. Sort of. We might still get kind of TPK'd here actually, but of our own volition, I guess. I think I'm kind of griefing my Dungeon Master's plans a bit by going full PvP mode here. With a nat 20 crit on the persuasion check, Lawrence was able to convince the remnants of the Draconic cult to follow him instead. So he is now in charge of a little evil army. Most of the party is very much not cool with this, so there's about to be a big fight. Now PvP in D&D can be messy, but I think it'll be fun, I think. This might also be finally be Lawrence's chance to actually get revenge on Valis and kill her, but Team Good unfortunately also has all of the healers in Merrick and Briar and all of the CC in Gnome, so honestly it's not looking too good for me and Team Evil right now. But it will be fine, don't worry, it'll be okay. Anyway, I know at this point I'm probably going to get the usual question of why don't we like stream or upload VODs of this campaign? And there's a few reasons. First of all, I'm not the DM, I'm just a player going along with the flow, so it's not entirely my call. Secondly, I don't know if everyone involved is comfortable even being recorded, so to say. I think the best middle ground for this is that I do record, but that I mostly upload highlights and whatnot in conjunction with these videos, which I am committed to doing for the next campaign, by the way. But starting now on this one, when we're so close to the end, feels a bit weird. Nonetheless though, I appreciate the interest shown. Alright, now for real, if you made it this far, then thank you very much for watching. Suffice to say, this is the biggest and most ambitious video I have ever created by a long shot. I've been working on this monster project now for like 3 months or something, so please, if you like this video, press like and subscribe. If you dislike this video, then by all means press dislike. And please let me know what you'd like to see me work on next in the comments. If you say sci-fi, there will be blood. Don't forget to check out the Discord, the Patreon, and the model links in the description. Now, most of all, I want to give a special thanks to said Patreon subscribers: Stoat Dross, Camelius, Nicholas A. Paul, Ken Hayes, Ghost GM, Deus Mercurius Magna, Weirdabox, Hidden Squid, Dread97, Mike Horst, Amaryllis, Narlon, Gesteig Panzer, Bob Bobbinson, The Old Fossil, Axe Momo, and Vin Penny. And with that, farewell everybody, until next time.